The story begins as we see a masked man fights several monsters, but he says it's not enough. He demonstrates exceptional strength, but is unsatisfied and wants more. We cut to a man in a carriage running away from goblins, but luckily for him, a group of warriors appears and is able to deal with the goblins. After their victory, they return to the town, passing by a hungry Fate who is standing guard at the castle. He notices them, but is disappointed. He can never be like them because he is constantly hungry due to his useless skill gluttony. The crowd is amazed as a group of holy knights pass through the town. They are the trio of the Valeric siblings, but we see they are terrible people. One of them kicks away a peasant in their way as they make their way towards the castle. At the gate, the eldest, Raphael, gives Fate his pay by throwing it on the ground. As he tries to pick it up, Hanno steps on his hand. However, his stomach growls at that moment and Raphael calls him disgusting. The siblings get mad at the growling, thinking it makes it seem like they don't pay him enough. They start beating him up, but he is saved by another holy knight named Roxy, who reminds the siblings of their duty as holy knights to be kind to the citizens they have sworn to protect. The siblings decide to leave, and Roxy helps Fate up. She consoles him by telling him that guarding the gate is honorable, and they are both equal in their job. Roxy takes over guarding the gate and asks him to tell her if something like this happens again, but Fate says that he is used to it, and he decides to leave. We learn that Fate wants to protect Roxy by keeping a distance and doesn't want to get her involved, fearing that Raphael will hurt her too. Fate is encouraged by the bartender to stand up for himself, or he could end up dead like the last guy. On his way home, Fate curses his gluttony skill for still being hungry even though he had a meal. He wishes he could have been born with a more useful skill and despairs that he can't do anything else because he can't change how things are. Fate notices thieves jumping over the castle wall, so he hurries over to Roxy to tell her the situation, and she leaves him to take over her position as she runs off to find the thieves. As he waits for Roxy to finish beating up the thieves, one of them runs toward him. His instincts tell him to run, but the thought of Roxy trusting him with her position helps him muster the courage to stay. He prepares himself to fight and notices that the thief is already injured. He gathers his courage and jumps toward the man, piercing him through his chest. Suddenly, he hears a voice telling him that his gluttony skill has been activated and his stats have been increased. Fate is confused, and the voice further tells him that the skills Identify and Telepathy have been added for him. At the same time, Roxy returns from her fight and is concerned for him. However, Fate notices something strange because he heard words coming from her, but her mouth didn't move. He reassures her and tells her that she can take credit for his kill because it would cause problems for him if Raphael found out. In return, Roxy offers him a job to work for her family. Fate considers his options and eventually agrees to work for her family. Later that night, Fate notices that all his stats are in the triple digits, and he then realizes that he must have been using telepathy on Roxy earlier. He is still confused about what is going on, but is now confident he can defeat monsters with his improved stats. The following day, Fate goes out to look for a sword. When the merchant finds out he is poor, he tells him he can only afford the trash swords in the barrel. Fate looks through the swords using his new Identify skill and learns that all the swords are useless except one. When Fate examines that sword, he is shocked when it suddenly speaks to him, introducing itself as Greed and telling Fate to buy him. Upon learning that Greed is knowledgeable about gluttony, Fate decides to buy it. We see the Valeric siblings talk about Roxy trying to hire Fate without informing them first. Raphael feels there is no need to complicate things between them and the Hartz family because they are both part of the 5 great families that support the kingdom. While noting Fate as being worthless, Raphael heads toward the military district, and his sister wonders what he's going to study. He tells her his plan to learn how to become immortal. Later on, we see Fate walking with Greed in his hand, and it warns him of something fast approaching. A goblin appears out of nowhere, but Fate is easily able to kill it, which activates his gluttony skill, increasing his stats once again. The skill strength boost is given to him. Swarms of goblins appear out of nowhere, but Fate remains calm as he cuts them down. After each kill, his gluttony skill is activated, and he ends up killing hundreds. When it's all over, he checks his stats and is surprised by how much they have increased. Greed points out that Fate must be full, and Fate notices that his stomach hasn't growled at all that day, which has never happened before. Greed says that normally each person has only the skill they are born with, but thanks to gluttony, Fate can steal the stats and skills of others. However, it's not something that other people can know about. Fate realizes that he must always fight alone, but Greed reassures him, saying he is not alone since he is with him. Fate takes all the goblin ears to get paid and wanders about all the things he can buy as they enter the town, but is reminded by Greed of his maintenance coming first. At that moment, they suddenly run into a man and a young girl who we see asking for help. Fate uses his skill, Identify, to assess the man's threat level and finds that he has the skill to hide stats. Fate is suspicious, but says that they can't just ignore a girl's cry for help. They follow the man, and he tells the girl that she'll be sold as a slave to the Holy Knights. Greed warns Fate that the man is tough, so it's his last chance to run away. However, Fate says he has finally gained the power he always wanted, and he will use it to protect the weak. Meanwhile, we see an old nun speaking to a bunch of orphans, telling them about Holy Laplace, the creator of the world, who gifted people special powers known as skills when she left the world. She reveals that there was a time when there were no skills and everything was peaceful. A nun barges into the room, saying she can't find a missing orphan. She leaves to continue her search, and the other nun wonders where the girl named Sahara has gone. As Fate and Greed encounter the man and the kidnapped girl, Sahara, Fate takes this chance to save her. He rescues the girl, but the kidnapper appears behind him. The kidnapper calls him foolish, telling him that he has no chance of beating him. He wants to take the girl to safety, but is unsure of what to do. Greed advises him to step back, take advantage of the kidnapper's overconfidence, and wait for the right moment to attack. Fate tries to flee with Zahara, but they eventually reach a dead end. Fate launches a surprise attack, and as the man prepares to use his skill, Greed instructs Fate to strike him head on. Fate charges at the man, delivering a decisive blow. Fate orders the man to tell him everything, but he refuses. Fate proceeds to torture him, and he eventually reveals that he was ordered by Hato to kidnap Sahara. Fate takes Sahara to get some food after hearing her stomach growl, and he takes her back to the orphanage. He is surprised to hear Sahara's gratitude because it's the first time someone thanked him. Fate approaches Sahara and gives her advice, the same words his father had told him in the past, but he had been unable to understand until now. No matter how hard things get, if you can laugh them off, one day you will find happiness. On the way back, Greed congratulates Fate on learning his first technical skill, the one-handed sword technique, a secret technique that allows him to attack twice in a single strike. Fate thinks he got lucky against the kidnapper and is determined to get stronger so that he can win without relying on luck. The following day, Fate arrives at the Hart family estate, where Roxy greets him at the gate. He is taken aback by her appearance. She takes him to the grave of her recently deceased father, revealing that he was killed 5 days ago in Gallia, a continent dominated by monsters. Roxy explains that it's the duty of Holy Knights to keep monsters in check on the continent of Gallia. This duty fell to the Hart family this year, but unfortunately, a divine dragon emerged from a 1,000-year solitude, wiping out the group led by her father. Roxy reveals that she is currently the head of the house and looks forward to working with Fate. As they are about to shake hands, Fate remembers that his telepathy will be activated, so he points towards a random person, Chief Mate Haru, who reminds him to conduct himself as a servant of the Hart family. A week goes by as Fate continues to work in the Hart estates. He talks with the other servants when his stomach starts to growl, shocking the others because they just ate lunch. Fate is called to meet Roxy, but his stomach continues to growl, and even Fate is confused by what is happening. Roxy tries to have a conversation with him, but he keeps thinking about why he's so hungry. Roxy snaps him out of it, and the two relate over their dead fathers, both killed by monsters. She considers him a member of the family, causing him to become flustered, but he suddenly loses consciousness. He wakes up in his room and sees a note from Roxy telling him to take the day off. Fate questions Greed about his hunger, and Greed reveals that it is due to gluttony. The more souls Fate consumes, the stronger he'll become, but at the same time, his desire will also grow stronger, and he is destined to seek out souls to consume until the day he dies. Greed tells Fate that when his hunger is at its limit, it will show in his eyes, and Fate realizes that his eyes are red. Fate goes outside and walks by a group of people, thinking they smell delicious. Greed explains that his hunger boost has kicked in because his hunger is at its limit. It's a temporary power that helps him hunt prey, and the prey can be tracked by scent, with weaker prey being paralyzed by fear. We see Fate and Greed go outside the kingdom and encounter several terrified goblins. Fate massacres all of them and heads towards the Hobgoblin Forest, where he continues to kill for several hours until his hunger is finally satisfied. However, a Goblin King appears out of nowhere, and Fate uses his Identify skill, revealing that they're almost equal in terms of stats, but the Goblin King has a health regeneration skill. Fate goes after the Goblin King and is disgusted to see it devour a human. He launches a surprise attack, slicing off its arm, and the fight continues, with Fate mostly dodging its attacks. Greed encourages him to attack, and Fate charges in, managing to overpower the Goblin Goblin King and land the finishing blow. As a result, Fate's stats increase significantly, and he gains the health regeneration skill. Greed reveals that with Fate's current stats, he can unlock Greed's first level in exchange for his stats. The first level will give Fate new functions, but he is shocked to learn that he needs to hand over all the stats he gained since they met. Greed explains that Fate will lose the right to wield him if he doesn't unlock him, so Fate agrees to do it. He begins the process, and Fate can feel his power leading his body as Greed transforms into a magic bow. He tells Fate that there is a goblin watching them, and he teaches Fate how to use the bow, which creates magic arrows when the string is pulled, telling him that he can aim wherever he wants, but the arrow will always hit its target. Fate takes the Goblin King's ears, and he leaves it at the orphanage door, as he believes that they need it more. The next day, Fate stops an intruder, but turns out it's Roxy dressed up as a peasant trying to secretly go to town for inspection. She brings Fate along with her, and on the way to town, she asks Fate to show her his sword, but he's afraid that she might figure something out after she sees it. The sword slips from his hand, and Roxy catches it, but fortunately doesn't notice anything. She tells Fate that the sword needs some maintenance, saying she will take him to the Hart family's blacksmith. They finally reach the town and are standing at a stall when everyone tenses up as a holy knight approaches. Faith's stomach growls at the worst possible time, angering the holy knight. The knight tries to step on him, but Roxy stops him, catching everyone's attention. Everyone is looking at Roxy, trying to figure out if the peasant girl is actually Miss Roxy. Greed tells Fate that if they act as a couple, no one will think that the peasant girl is actually Roxy. Roxy overhears this plan when Fate replies to Greed, thinking it's a good idea. So she goes along with it, and they start acting like a couple, convincing everyone that the girl is not Roxy while everyone is distracted. They both slip away and hide in the corner. Fate hears her thoughts as she thinks about how her heart is racing because this is the first time she has locked arms with a boy. Roxy decides that they need to keep moving, and they overhear people talking about all the dead goblins that were recently found. The rumors are that it was done by a wandering monster, but it doesn't explain why the goblin ears were donated to the orphanage in the slums. She asks Fate to take her where the warriors gather, saying she wants to investigate the wandering monster. Fate takes Roxy to the bar, where the bartender reveals that he has heard about a warrior who struck gold. When he found a mountain of goblin corpses with their ears still intact, Roxy believes that it must have been a monster from a different region. The bartender thinks this is bad for business because a lot of merchants travel through those goblin plains, so people won't travel due to the fear that a monster might attack them. An old man enters the bar and joins the conversation, telling them the monster is a lich, which is why the holy knights are directly dealing with him. A group of warriors enters the bar and tells Roxy to join them for fun. Roxy pushes the man lightly, but he is sent crashing to the other side of the room, and they realize that only a holy knight can have that much power. Roxy finally reveals her identity, and the warriors apologize, trying to give her all the money they have. But she rejects it, telling them not to fear the holy knights. She reveals that she dreams of a world where commoners and holy knights can laugh together. They go to the blacksmith, who finishes maintenance on Greed, so he now looks like a new sword. While going through town, Roxy explains that she didn't know about the hunt because it's being led by the Vlaric family, and they simply didn't tell her. We see Hato holding a child, explaining that he is simply taking a lost child into protection, but Fate takes the boy away, and Roxy tells them that they will take care of him. Roxy asks Raphael why she was not informed about the hunt, and he says that he didn't want to bother her as she must have been busy mourning her father. The Vlarics decide to leave while Fate and Roxy take the boy to find his mother, allowing him to reunite with her. After returning home, Fate asks Greed for a way to hunt monsters without Roxy finding out. The next day, Greed tells him to buy a mask with perception warping magic, which will make him look different to whoever sees him. We see that Raphael has gathered the knights in a dark room, and they discuss the excursion to Gallia. Sometime later, a group of warriors finds more dead goblins, and they look up to find a lich standing on a mountain of corpses. The terrified warriors call the corpse, and they run away as we see Fate enjoy the nickname given to him. The next day, Roxy goes up to Fate and tells him to go with her because she has a secret mission for him. They both get in a carriage and pass through the Hart family's vineyard to arrive at their destination, where Roxy's mother Aisha is standing at the door. Roxy introduces Fate as a servant she recently hired, and Aisha asks Fate if he likes Roxy, causing them to become flustered. But Aisha explains that she wants to know his opinion of Roxy as a boss, and Fate says that he would like to serve her until the end of his life. Roxy is is flustered, and she runs to her room where she looks at a picture of her father. We see Fate helping the other servants harvest the grapes, and they tell him how the lords have personally helped cultivate this land for generations. Everyone is proud that they can help the lords. A servant reveals that it's time for hunting as well, because monsters called kobold appear during the harvest season. Looking for food, Faith's stomach starts growling as Greed explains that gluttony requires various kinds of souls, and goblins alone won't satisfy his growing hunger. On his way home, Fate sees a mysterious girl with a massive axe. As she passes by, Fate is shocked to see she has the same eyes as him. He tries to check her stats, but it doesn't work. The girl checks him out and mentions she is too early. Fate wonders what she's talking about, but she just tells him that he can have the kobolds and declares that he now owes her, telling him that they will meet again. Roxy catches up, and she points out that the girl is a Gallian. We learn that Gallia was a great military power 4,000 years ago, but with the rise in monsters, their nation eventually collapsed, and most of their people were killed. So she is surprised to see a survivor. As the two head back, Fate wonders if Roxy will really be okay hunting the monsters on her own, but she assures him that the other warriors will be with her, and it's her duty as a holy knight. The next day, we see everyone hiding as they prepare to hunt the kobolds, but they're all shocked when a massive monster suddenly appears. Fate's mouth waters seeing it, but Greed knows this is a problem because Fate is almost in a starvation state, and Fate worries about Roxy seeing him. He checks the monster stats, and we see it at level 50 with insanely high stats. It's known as a crown beast, and Greed explains that it's a monster born from accumulated aggression. They return to the village, and everyone panics because they don't think that they stand a chance. But Roxy manages to calm them down, assuring them that she will slay it. She tells the warriors they will go back the next day. Greed notes that they don't stand a chance, and Fate refuses to let Roxy die, so he heads back by himself later that night. He sees there are kobolds around the crown beast, and Greed wonders what he plans to do. He starts attacking with his bow form, taking some of them out as he absorbs their stats with his gluttony. He tries shooting at the crowned beast, but it just blocks it using one of the soldiers. Fate gets closer with his sword, taking out even more of the kobolds. We see his stats significantly increased, and he thinks he can now take out the boss with his bow, but the beast is able to catch his arrow. He prepares to fight it with his sword, but the beast suddenly uses a skill that blasts him with a shockwave. Fate is knocked out, and a kobold comes to finish him off. However, it suddenly gets cut, and we see Fate was just pretending to be unconscious. Fate takes out another kobold, absorbing its stats, and Greed notes that he should be able to use his first level hidden art. It will cost 10% of his current stats, but it should allow him to defeat the boss. Fate accepts the conditions, and his bow gets an upgrade. He fires a powerful shot at the beast. Rejuvenated by the upgraded bow, Fate wipes out the crown beast in a single hit, though he thinks it might have been overkill. His gluttony skill is activated, causing him tremendous pain. Greed explains that it's because it's the first time he has devoured a soul of higher quality. Greed tells him he must bear the pain no matter what, or else he will lose control, and it will be even worse than his starvation state. Fate tries to hold it in, but the pain is unbearable, and he screams in agony. The next day, the warriors arrive at the aftermath of the massacre and wonder if it was done by magic arrows. Roxy is also there, wondering who could be strong enough to do this much damage. A few moments later, we see that Fate is fine as Roxy goes on to tell Aisha about what she saw. Roxy remembers the mysterious girl they saw the other day and thinks that she must have been the one who killed all those monsters. She tells Fate that she is ready to return to the capital. Aisha notices how happy Roxy looks when she is talking to him. After some time, Aisha speaks to him, telling him to always support Roxy and take care of her. She advises him not to worry about holding prestige or authority, but to focus on his desire to help Roxy. Aisha emphasizes the importance of his role in taking care of Roxy and asks him to think about it carefully. On the way home, Fate reflects on what Aisha said and believes that he is not worthy of the task as he is hiding such an important thing from Roxy. That evening, Fate is shocked to see that his eyes are still red, even though he has slaughtered a bunch of goblins. Greed explains that the goblins won't be able to satisfy his hunger anymore, and he must find stronger souls before he loses control. Sometime later, Fate is sitting in a bar and decides that he is not worthy of standing by Roxy because he is hiding things from her. An old man walks in and complains about Hato joining the lich hunt. He expresses hatred for Hato and wishes that he is sent on the Gallia expedition so that he can end up as monster food. This shocks Fate because he can't believe that they're planning another expedition so soon, considering that Roxy's father just passed away. We see that Roxy has been chosen as Hato's replacement. A few moments later, we see Roxy at her father's grave, telling him that she has been chosen for the Gallia expedition. Fate arrives, imploring Roxy not to go, but she tells him that she has already decided to go. Meanwhile, the clerics celebrate, looking forward to getting rid of Roxy. Two other siblings leave the rest to Otto as they're about to leave for a place called Tinburn. Otto asks Raphael to tell him the secret involving immortality, but Raphael just tells him that he must successfully deal with the leash. Fate stands in the middle of the plains, contemplating how he can't interfere with official matters. However, he decides that he can't let the Holy Knights continue to treat people poorly. Hato arrives with his men and orders them to attack Fate, but Fate easily deals with them as Hato watches on in horror. The others run away in fear and Fate prepares to take on Hato, asserting that he won't let a corpse make a fool of him. Fate removes his mask, revealing his identity, and Hato wonders how someone like him can be so powerful. Hato takes pride in his status as a Holy Knight, but Fate challenges him to display his powers. Fate asks Greed if he can shatter a holy sword, and Greed assures him it shouldn't be a problem, encouraging Fate to swing as hard as he can. Otto attempts to attack with Holy Light, but Fate appears behind him and effortlessly destroys the holy sword. Fate then challenges Hato to take the broken half. Hato tries to step back, but he falls to the ground. Fate picks him up, stating that he needs to be taught a lesson. Fate smashes Hato against trees, destroying multiple of them. Hato pleads for his life, but Fate throws him high into the air. Equipping the upgraded bow, Fate fires a powerful arrow towards Hato and leading a hole in the clouds. Hato falls to the ground after Fate's powerful arrow creates a hole in the clouds. Wondering why Fate didn't kill him, Hato reveals that Roxy volunteered for the Gallia expedition, pleading with Fate to spare him. Hato promises to cancel the expedition, but Fate explains that this isn't for Roxy, but for his own revenge. Fate delivers the finishing blow, activating the gluttony skill again and gaining the holy sword technique required to become a holy knight. Greed informs Fate that he can now be considered a holy knight, but Fate is reluctant, knowing that no one in the capital would accept him. Greed tells Fate that he can now unlock the second level in exchange for all of his stats, and Fate agrees. Greed proceeds with the upgrade, revealing Fate's new form, which is a scythe that can cut through anything. The next day, Roxy is about to leave for the expedition, and everyone is there to see her off. They are all sad, but Roxy consoles them, saying 3 years isn't a long time. She makes her way to Fate, and they bid each other farewell. Haru gives Fate the recommendation letter left by Roxy so that he can seek employment at a lord's manor, but Fate rejects the letter, telling Haru that he will be living as a warrior from now on. That night, we learn that Fate actually plans to go to Gallia to support Roxy, as Fate is leading the capital. We see a girl watching him, saying things are shaping up nicely. Sometime later, Roxy gives a speech to all the troops in the expedition, telling everyone that they must do their best to destroy the divine dragon, which has woken up from its slumber. Roxy is glad to see that a girl named Mia and a man named Muvon will be joining her. Mia calls Mugen an oddball for wanting to test his strength against a divine dragon, but Mugen explains that he volunteered because of Roxy's father and wants to avenge him. Roxy asks him if his family is against him going to Gallia, but he says that his daughter couldn't care less and only wants him to bring back Gallian relics. We see that Mugen's daughter, Rain, is working as a researcher in a lab filled with goblins that Faye killed. She discovers that some of the wounds were from the magic arrows of the Black Sword, one of the weapons of mortal sin. We learn that the weapons of mortal sin are made of a special material which can manipulate magic power at a high level. Rain thinks that they can expand the possibility spectrum for skills, saying she wants to see one of these weapons. Fate arrives at the merchant city of Tetra, and he reveals that he's been there before. He discovers that the carriage for Gallia will not be leaving till the next day. Fate decides to gather intel for now at the bar. He sees a man asking a group of warriors for their help, but they tell him that the money he is offering is not enough, and they start bullying him. Fate beats them up, forcing them to leave, and he greets the man who turns out to be his old friend named Seth. In a flashback, we learn that when Fate was younger, he was bullied because his stomach was always growling, and he had a good relationship with his father before he was eventually killed by monsters. Fate's father was a warrior with his spare technique, and this is why the village chief kept him around after his death. No one was willing to take care of Fate, and he was driven out of the village upon the village chief's command. Back in the present, Set begs Fate to help him, but Fate doesn't seem to care because Set is the son of the village chief. Fate agrees to help only because gluttony needs to be fed, and the monsters attacking the village would be perfect for him. They arrive at the village, but the village chief is disappointed because Set brought back the once exiled weakling. Seth tries to vouch for Fate's strength after having seen him defeat the other warriors, but the chief doesn't believe any of it. The villagers reveal that screams were heard from a nearby forest, thinking the monsters are getting close. The chief suggests sacrificing Fate to buy them some time. At Set's house, Set tells Fate about his wife being killed by the monsters and that he regrets growing up thinking that his father was always correct. He explains how he finally got his act together when his daughter was born. Set informs Fate that the monsters first showed up around a month ago, and according to eyewitnesses, the monsters can fly. The villagers have never seen anything like it before, so they decided to hire warriors to deal with them. Fate's stomach starts growling, so Set prepares to get him some food. Greed tells Fate that the monsters they are dealing with are gargoyles who start by doing probing attacks to see how the humans react. When the time is right, the entire pack attacks in a swarm. Set's daughter gives Fate a candy, which he eats, but he suddenly collapses. Set and his daughter wonder what just happened. Set's daughter reveals that he just ate the candy that Grandpa had given her. Greed thinks that the candy was poisoned, and the village chief was serious about using Fate as a sacrifice. Seth tries to wake him up, but to no avail, and he realizes that the gargoyles are approaching the village. The gargoyles attack, setting the village on fire and eating the villagers. Fate is still unconscious because of the poison. Seth creates an antidote and gives it to Fate, allowing him to recover. He realizes that they're under attack, so he rushes outside and sees the village in ruins. He checks the gargoyle's stats, and we learn that it has a skill that allows it to launch fireballs. Greed transforms into a scythe as the gargoyles combine their powers, allowing them to launch a massive fireball. But Fate throws his weapon, slicing through the fireball, and it pursues the gargoyles, wiping them out. The scythe returns to Fate, and he acquires the fireball skill as the leader of the pack appears before him. He checks its stats and learns that it has the fireball skill as well as the ability to resist fire. Greed thinks that it will try to launch fireballs at close range. As the gargoyle charges, Fate, preparing to attack, delivers a devastating blow, slicing it in half and killing it instantly. The next day, we learn that the village has been completely destroyed. Fate uses his identify skill, revealing that the soil isn't healthy, so crops won't grow in that area. Set wonders why Fate chose to be a warrior when he can earn a living with his identify skill. However, Fate tells Set that he has no choice but to fight. Set tells Fate to hit him because he feels guilty for what he did, so Fate tries to punch him lightly, but he gets knocked down as Fate realizes that he has become too strong. He tells Seth to look after his daughter, and they bid each other farewell. We see Fate riding a carriage as a man tells him to stay alert because he is being paid to protect the carriage. A group of bandits block their path, causing the man to panic as he begs Fate to protect him. The bandits prepare to attack, but they are suddenly blown away as the mysterious girl appears, telling Fate that he owes her for the cobalts. The man allows her to ride the carriage, but as she enters it, the carriage tips over. She tells her weapon, Sloth, to return to normal, and this fixes the problem as Fate realizes that she can change the weight of her weapon while in the carriage. The girl reveals that she knows about Faith's skill because she isn't so different, revealing that she also has a skill of deadly sin. She introduces herself as Mine of Wrath, and her stomach starts growling, so he gives her food, but she eats all of it, leaving nothing for him to eat. They arrive at the town of Lanchester, where we see a girl entering the gate, but she is greeted. The girl entering the gate is greeted by ghosts, so she screams for help. A man named Rudolph arises, defeating the ghosts and introducing himself as the Lord of Lanchester, grabbing the girl's attention. Fate learns that the expedition led by Roxy will be arriving in the town, and he is about to be paid for his services. However, Mine takes it, saying she defeated the bandits. She suddenly falls asleep, so Fate carries her around the town. He notices that everyone has symbols on their necks. Greed thinks that the symbols represent the social classes, believing that the people must really love Rudolph because they allowed him to place symbols on their necks. However, they see Rudolph executing his men because they have failed in their duty to convey his family's greatness. They learn that the people are obeying him because they don't want to die by his hands. Fate arrives at a hotel where Creed reveals that he knows Mine and that Sloth is also a weapon of mortal sin. He reveals that the skills of deadly sin were born by defying the divine laws. Gluttony has the potential to overturn the divine system of leveling because of its ability to consume souls. Fate notes that he can't satiate his hunger, seeing it as punishment for consuming souls. He wonders why he was given the skill of gluttony, revealing that he hates it because he has to keep killing just to survive. Greed warns him not to let his emotions disturb him because gluttony could take over if his mind is weak. He advises Fate not to satisfy gluttony at once and slowly get his fill. A Sandman appears, so Fate uses his bow and casts a fireball on the arrow before launching it at the Sandman, killing it instantly. Meanwhile, Mine wakes up and grabs something to eat. She learns about a creature known as the Sand Golem, which is threatening the people in the town and has a bounty of 100 gold. Fate continues to hunt Sandman and feels the presence of a powerful monster, realizing that it's time for the main dish. We see a group of warriors struggling against the Sand Golem when Fate joins the battle, saying he will take care of the monster. He checks the monster's stats, and we learn that it has the ability to create sandstorms. Fate launches a fire arrow and charges in, but the monster manages to push him back. It uses its skill, creating a sandstorm, but Fate transforms his weapon into a scythe and launches an attack, overpowering the sandstorm and destroying the monster's body. The monster's core tries to escape, hiding in the sand, but Fate uses his bow, launching a powerful arrow that chases the core and destroys it in an enormous explosion. The next day, Fate receives 100 gold for defeating the sand golem. Rudolph suddenly appears, telling Fate to serve him as he explains that Fate has no right to refuse because his decision is final. Mine tells him that Fate belongs to her, but he calls her a child, so she hits him, blowing him away. Fate knows that they're in trouble, so he tells Mine that they should leave the town. They ride the carriage as Fate wonders why Mine eats a lot, and she reveals that anger burns plenty of calories. He tells her that despite her appetite, she isn't growing at all, causing her to become upset. So she activates sloth, but she ends up breaking the carriage. As the owner fixes it, Fate enters a village, and Greed notes that there are plenty of monsters in the area, thinking that someone is protecting the village. He encounters the village chief named Aaron, who is revealed to be a holy knight. Aaron knows that Fate wants to stay in the village and challenges him to a duel. Fate tries to check his stats, but he recognizes the identify skill, revealing that he can also use that skill. They exchange blows, and Aaron manages to defeat Fate, but he decides to let him stay under the condition that they train together. He knows that Fate isn't used to his powers, so he will benefit from their training. He ends up accepting the condition, and Mine appears, grabbing Aaron's attention because he can already tell that she's a skilled warrior. He allows them to stay in the village, and we see him with Fate, training him on how to fight hand to hand. Fate struggles to hit Aaron, but he enters half-starvation mode, improving his speed and allowing him to keep up with Aaron's moves. That evening, we see Aaron staring at a nearby castle as Fate sees a photo of Aaron's family. Greed thinks that Aaron's son looks like Fate, thinking his family has something to do with why he became the village chief. The next day, Aaron tells Fate to protect himself with a twig, and Aaron charges at him. Fate predicts the sword's movement and lets the twig slide along the blade, allowing him to deflect the blow. Aaron is impressed, saying Fate has improved. That evening, Fate tells Aaron that they will be leading the next day, thanking him for his hospitality. He observes that Mayan is too busy eating, and she reveals that she can't taste her food, as Greed mentions that this is the punishment for wrath. Aaron stares at the castle, and he reveals that it once belonged to him. We learn that while he was away from the castle, it was attacked by monsters, so his son Rook tried his best to defend, but ended up dying. The Lich Lord took over the castle, and Aaron knows that his family is still trapped there. Fate thinks about going there, and Aaron decides to join him, while Mine agrees to protect the village if they pay her 50 gold. They make their way to the castle, where Fate shoots a skeleton, turning it into stone. He reveals that he used a sandstorm with his arrow to petrify the target. They head deeper into the castle, destroying the skeletons along the way, and they enter a room where Aaron is surprised to see his family. They tell him that they've been waiting for him, and he thinks that they're still alive. But Greed reveals that they're already dead, and the Lich is using illusion magic to make them look alive. Rook suddenly attacks Aaron, but he manages to block it, pushing Rook back. Rook says that he despises Aaron because he abandoned his family to work in the capital, and Rook blames him for what happened to them. Fate thinks about using his scythe to dispel the illusion, but Greed reveals that if they do this, Fate will end up consuming the souls of Aaron's family, sending them to an eternal hell. Aaron says that he will take care of his family, and Fate decides to look for the leash. He eventually finds it, realizing that its stats are ridiculously high. He manages to break its arms, but it summons a group of zombies who are begging Fate to save them. However, he knows that he can't attack them. Aaron joins the fight, taking down the zombies, and he sees his wife recalling the last moment he spent with his family. We learn that they didn't want him to go, but he promised to return after his mission. He blames himself for what happened to them because they wouldn't have died if he had returned sooner, but he is determined to put their souls to rest. He uses the Grand Cross skill, releasing a flash of holy light, but it isn't strong enough to defeat the Lich. Fate sees Rook's sword and decides to use it, combining his powers with Aaron. They use the Grand Cross skill, creating a massive flash of light which instantly kills the leash, freeing the souls in the castle. Aaron's family appears before him, and they tell him not to blame himself for what happened, telling him that he was able to save them in the end. He asks for forgiveness, saying they are more important than his duties, but they tell him that he should continue to serve the people. He promises to make them proud and gives Rook a souvenir before they finally rest in peace. The souls in the castle disappear, But the lich's core tries to ruin the moment, so fate destroys it, allowing him to consume the lich later. That evening, we learn that Aaron has broken his level limit, thinking it's because he was fighting with fate. Greed reveals that Aaron was able to do this because he opened his heart to fate, who has a skill of deadly sin. They return to the village where Aaron pays Mine for her services. She mentions that she needs money to rebuild her village, saying money doesn't lie, and fate will understand what she means after he grows older. Aaron reveals that he saw her 50 years ago and that she was already a perfect warrior, but her appearance hasn't changed at all. She tells him that he might be able to reach her level after he trains for 1,000 years. But she knows that he won't be able to live that long because he's only human, saying she is a ghost who isn't allowed to die. Aaron observes that Fate's eyes have returned to normal, and he mentions that he needs to keep killing monsters so that his eyes won't turn red. Aaron seems to know about gluttony, telling him to return to the village after his quest because there is something he needs to know. Meanwhile, the Vlarik family acquires an artifact known as the Philosopher's Stone, which has the power to cure anything. Raphael's sister thinks that they are closer to achieving immortality. A servant delivers a report, telling them that Hada was killed by Corpse. The servant mentions that Corpse isn't a monster, but a warrior, and Raphael wonders who he is, wanting to avenge his fallen brother. But that's where this video ends. If you want more parts, let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Peace out.